Having made the top junior categories alongside Formula One, Calan Williams quickly became one of the best junior drivers in the world.
Calan Williams, a podium finisher in Formula 3, and the Australian driver's going to get by. And he'll go around the outside to find his way up to the podium.
In 2023, he made the step to GT racing.
It's the highest level GT3 championship in the world.
Calan Williams and Nicholas Crutten brings the car home to win at Brands Hatch.
We went from leading the championship by about 20 points to...
There's mayhem in the background.
Big disappointment for WRT. Contact, right goes the Lamborghini.
Calan Williams there. He's got a puncture. That throws the Gold Cup into the air, doesn't it?
being second by about 12 points with only one round to go.
This is interesting because I'm Sam. I'm actually Calan's brother, and Charles is away in the Maldives. So Charles, if you're listening, I hope you're having an amazing time. And Aldo is unfortunately unavailable. So I'll be hosting. So quite interesting, this one. I don't think you've ever had this before.
Not like this, no.
No. So it's a first. So obviously the last time we had you on was almost exactly a year ago. Yeah, so it's probably been about a year and a lot has happened. Obviously, when we interviewed you before, you just come off racing F2 and you're looking into 2023. And now, a year later, you did GT. So your first year racing GT and you actually grabbed 2 class championships. So you're a champion overall and then you're champion for the sprint. Not a bad year, considering it's your first year in GT racing and you've come out of it being a champion.
Yeah, it was a really nice season. Obviously, that's a great way to come off it. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot to learn. The cars are massively different to anything I'd driven before the last season. Much heavier, much bigger as well. So, and the racing is completely different.
So, for context, in 2022, you're racing F2, which is the main support series for F1. But obviously, last year, you went into GT racing. So, you did a new championship. So, are you able to describe that championship and tell us a little bit what it's about?
Yeah, so it's endurance racing, GT3 and endurance racing. So, last year we had... There were 2 different formats for the weekend. So there were the sprint weekends, which is where you have 2 one-hour races, and you have 2 drivers per car, and you do a driver change in the pit stop halfway through the race. And then you have the endurance races, which are anywhere from 3 to 24 hours, and we had 3 drivers. And again, you do driver changes throughout the race. So in a 3-hour race, each driver would do roughly 1 hour each, driver changing at the pit stop again. And obviously up to the 24 hours, it's normally pretty evenly split, 8 hours each, and you do like 2-hour stints. So you'd go in the car for 2 hours, then you'd have 4 hours off while your teammates are driving, 2 hours again.
What was that like? Because obviously in F2 and single-seater racing, it's quite cutthroat. You look at your teammate as your benchmark. But obviously with GT racing, it's kind of the opposite. You've really got to work together and you've got to be on the same side. So what was that like? Was there kind of any difference, any changes you had to do with that?
So yeah, it's an interesting change in dynamic. So yeah, in single seaters, your teammate is your biggest enemy. That's the person you got to beat, and is your main competition more than anyone else on the grid. Whereas when you're sharing a car with your teammates, it's completely the opposite. You're doing everything you can, and they're doing everything they can to help you. And so the first times I was driving the car, they're coming up to me, giving me advice, like, oh, you should do this at this corner or try this gear here. And I'm like, what? Why are you guys helping me? I'm not used to this. I was used to teammates who are always sort of trying to get one up on you constantly. So yeah, that was a bit of a culture shock in a way. And it obviously it's still incredibly high level competition, and perhaps the other cars in the team are your competition, but having teammates within your car that are working so closely with you and you're all trying to help each other is completely, yeah, it's it's a completely different dynamic. And yeah, took a bit of getting used to, I'll be honest.
Yeah. Is there still a little bit of that, I need to beat my teammate. I need to kind of...
I don't think there's any of that directly. I mean, everyone is obviously always trying to improve themselves and be the best that they can be. And so a natural part of that is like every single person involved in racing wants to be the fastest driver. And so that's never going to go away. But it's not helpful to try and specifically be faster than your teammates. It's more about improving yourself and being as fast as you can be, which sometimes means, you'll be the faster driver than your teammates. Or if your teammates are faster than you, you'll look at where you can improve. But it's not because you're directly trying to beat your teammates. It's because you're just trying to improve yourself. And focusing too much on trying to beat your teammates is actually detrimental because, in single-seaters, there's a lot of sort of mind games that go on between teammates and things like that. When you're fighting against someone, it's as much about, there's two things. You need to do everything you can to do the best job that you can do, but it's also about understanding your competition and how you can beat them. And what strategies you can come up to beat them. So if you start trying to do that with your teammates, it's detrimental to all of you because you're relying on your teammates to give you a result as well. There's no point out of 3 drivers in a car, one of them being really quick and the other 2 being slow because they all end up with the same finishing result. It's not like, if you finish 10th in a race, it's not like, one driver was really quick, so he, we'll say he finished 4th and the others finished 20th. It doesn't work like that. You need to work with your teammates and they are part of your results. They are part of your career. And so if you start trying to directly, like your focus is directly on, I need to beat my teammate, I need to be the fastest in this car, you could actually be hurting yourself in the end.
Yeah.
And so the focus needs to be on yourself and your own improvement, not necessarily trying to beat these guys.
Yeah. I think that's well said. So we've spoken about your teammates and the mentality behind that. We haven't really spoken about the team. So you drove with WRT. They've been very, very successful, got a very, very good reputation. Now I want to start talking mindset. Are you feeling the pressure more? Does it make you more confident? Like what's your thought process there?
I think it's a case of there's still a lot of pressure in the environment because it's the highest level GT3 championship in the world. It's a top level championship, top level team, top level drivers. Everything is really high pressure environment, but that's what you expect from competing in international sport. So yeah, obviously there's a lot of pressure. There always will be pressure, and not most of that comes from yourself. You want to perform. You don't want to come away from a season thinking, "Oh, I should have done this," and so you're always working really hard to maximize everything, and that creates a lot of pressure within yourself. But that's not necessarily a bad thing if you manage it and you accept it. As opposed to trying to ignore it and fight against it. It's more about accepting it. And so the pressure's not, the pressure's there, but it doesn't really have an effect because it's expected. And you develop ways to manage that and use it in a way.
So how do you deal with pressure?
The main thing that helps with dealing with pressure is your preparation. If you work hard away from the track and you do everything you can to prepare, when you're in a high pressure situation, you can really just trust yourself and not think about it. If you're in a high pressure situation, you're trying to think about it, you're doubting yourself, that's when everything goes wrong. And so the best way I've found to deal with that is just to work hard and prepare well before a race, because then, you turn up, let's say the championship deciding race at the end of the year, you turn up and you go, I'm going to do the best I can. I'm not fully in control of this situation and I never will be. There's always random elements that can come into play, but I'm going to just focus on doing everything that I can do. I've prepared well. I've worked hard for this. and I know I can do it. And so I just need to go out there and trust myself to do it, because there's so much work that leads up to the race weekend, that if you do the preparation well and you do the hard work, then, like I said, when you're in that situation, you can just, it's much easier to let go of the pressure and just trust yourself.
Can you overthink when you're driving? Does that kind of start to create issues?
Yeah, yes, and it's easy to do, to start trying to think too much about things. And often it's detrimental, because the thing is, like, you can't control what all the other cars around you are doing. And so you have to have quite a large amount of your mental capacity open, ready to react. You know, if you're thinking constantly all the time about everything, then you can't react properly to something that might happen. And you can't make decisions when things change. You can't preempt what you're going to do. You can't think about every possible situation. And it gets to the point where if you're thinking about things too much, then it's just, it's detrimental. You're using up all your focus or your energy on thinking about things that you shouldn't really be thinking about anyway, and you end up going slower. And again, that's the same thing. It comes back to that preparation. The more preparation you do, the more trust you have in yourself, the less that you're going to overthink.
So obviously, we've spoken about coming in with WRT, a front-running team, and you have a very, very good start to the year. At the halfway point, you're leading your championship, so you're leading your class by 30, I think it was 30 points. Like, how do you maintain that winning mindset?
Well, it's just, you don't change anything. You just keep doing what you're doing. You know, what you're doing so far has worked well, leading the championship. You know, it's very easy to go wrong when you're in that position, because you think, oh, okay, now I just take it easy, just don't do anything stupid and I'll do it. That doesn't work. You know, in a championship sense, that doesn't work. You have to keep pushing and keep doing the same thing you're doing. And then on the other trap you can fall into is thinking, oh, I'm leading now I have to win. You know, I have the advantage, I have to win. Yes, everyone wants to win, everyone's pushing hard, but if you lock yourself in and start putting extra pressure on yourself, that causes problems as well. Because the thing is, motorsport is not a sport where you're fully in control of what happens. You can't control everything, and when you can't control everything, there's elements of random that come into play. And so it's pointless to go, I'm leading, now I have to win, and put that pressure on yourself, because you don't know what's going to happen. You could get hit in a race by someone else, or you could have a problem on the car, or you know, your competition could just have an amazing weekend that you, for whatever reason, just can't match at the time. You know, and it can go the other way as well. It's just this randomness that happens sometimes. You can only ever control 70% at most of what's going on, at most. And so, you know, if you sit there and say, I have to win, and these things that you can't control just don't go your way, then, you know, you end up putting more pressure on yourself and it doesn't work. So, yeah, it's just about, you know, where you are in the championship halfway through the season is irrelevant. It's where you are at the end. Yeah. And so you just have to keep doing the same things, the same routine, the same preparation, and just don't change anything, because it's worked so far. It will keep working if you trust yourself and you keep doing the work.
So you just kind of break it down. So, okay, we're going to go back to the basics here. I'm going to keep working hard. I'm going to focus on what I can control, and very much just keep my head in the game. So you just kind of keep it simple. Yeah,
but not even that. Just, you know, that's what you're doing anyway. It's not necessarily like rethinking anything. It's just you keep doing what you're doing. And the point is you don't change anything, because that's when things go wrong. If you start trying to change everything unnecessarily, or start doubting yourself or put pressure on yourself, it's just about, look, I'm leading the championship. I'm in a good position. And it's about saying to yourself, it's not saying I'm in a good position in the championship now, so I have to win. You know, that's not helpful, telling yourself that, unless that's what motivates you. But most of the time, it's not helpful. It's about going, look, I'm leading the championship now. At the moment, I have the best chance of winning the championship. It's about accepting the fact that randomness can come into play. And even if you do the best that you can do, sometimes you just get unlucky. And there's things you can't control. You know, if things, you know, like if you can do things to make those random events happen less often, like avoiding an accident or putting yourself in a less risky situation or something like that, that helps because that's in your control. But there are certain things that you just can't control.
Well, let's talk about that. You come back into the season, you win your first race back, you have a very, very strong result. But then, unfortunately, things start unraveling.
We had three races in a row where we had two races in a row with a lap 1 incident, and then the race before both of those we had something in the pit stop that I'll talk about. So yeah, we had 3 very unlucky races in a row.
So all of a sudden you've gone from having this, we're in a very, very good spot, let's not get ahead of ourselves, you're probably feeling quite confident, to we're now second, potentially falling to third in the championship. What are you thinking?
Yeah, obviously it was quite disappointing, and not necessarily disappointing, but it was, it wasn't very nice that things happened that way. So in Barcelona at the first pit stop, very busy pit lane, the car in the box behind us stopped too far forward. So when my teammate came in, he couldn't stop in the right place. So then, you have to pick the car up manually and move it into position because the fuel hose won't reach, and that cost us 30 or 40 seconds at least, and that is a huge amount of time.
So what's a good pit stop time?
So
in GT?
in the endurance races, we're restricted by, you have to have the fuel hose connected for a minimum amount of time, which is normally around 40 seconds. So your pit stop would normally be 40 seconds. Ours was double that because we had the problem where the cars behind we couldn't park in the right place. And you have to be in the right position to do your pit stop. You're not allowed to be out of position. And so when the mechanics are having to pick the car up and manually push it, that takes a lot of time. And you still have to then have the fuel hose connected for the regulation time. So we lost, double that. 40 seconds is half a lap at Barcelona. That's a huge amount of time.
And I guess the thing to add as well is there's a lot of cars, especially in the endurance, and they're all very, very close to each other. So losing half a lap is
so not only
you towards the back of the field.
Yeah, not only do you lose half a lap, you then lose time every single lap you're racing because you're having to overtake other cars. And so you end up losing a minute, in the course of the race when you have to overtake 20 other cars. So yeah, that was tough. That obviously put us quite a long way back from where we should have been. And then the following round at Valencia was a sprint weekend, and in both races we through no fault of our own, we got hit from behind on lap 1 in both races. First race we were out, second race we had a puncture, had to come in the pits and we're last. And then had to fight our way through the field. And so yeah, we went from leading the championship by about 20 points to being second by about 12 points with only 1 round to go.
Going into the last round, if you're trying to win back this momentum, what are you thinking? Because as we discussed before, you can't start overthinking things when you're racing.
Yeah, so it's about just, again, it's similar to what I was talking about before. It's just about accepting, we hadn't done anything wrong. It was just all those things were just unlucky. Sometimes, like I said, sometimes you have an incident where you go, I probably could have avoided that by being a bit safer or doing something different. But those 3 races were all situations where I was like, we just couldn't do anything about that. Now we're second. We don't deserve to be second. We accept that, it's quite unfortunate. And now we have to really fight to come back and to get this championship that we deserve. And yeah, it was, one round left, sprint, 2 races. The difference between first and second is only 4 points, and we had 12 points to catch up, which is quite a lot. Did you think you could do it? Did you honestly believe that you could win? Because the thing is, there were both championships on the line. One was a little bit more achievable. The other one was you had to win, and then the car leading the championship at the time had to finish way down the field. Yeah, and that's one of those things. Like, even if we did everything we could and we won both of the races in our class, they would still have had to finish in X position or whatever. And we can't control where they're going to finish. We're in control of where we finish and and what we do and how well we perform. or mostly in control at least. There are some other things that come into play. But we can't control what everyone else does, and we can't control where they finish. And so again, that was just one of those things where it's like we just need to turn up, put our best effort in, just keep doing what we've been doing all year. Nothing special, we don't need to change anything. We've been performing strongly. If we start changing everything, then we're adding, instead of controlling something, we're adding another element of random in, which you want to avoid. And so yeah, we just had to keep just trust, just go, look, we're gonna put maximum effort into this weekend and do everything we can, and that will give us the best chance of winning the championship. As much as we deserve it, we were not fully in control of that situation because we can't control where they finish. We can't control what they do. We are just in control of what we do, and we need to put the maximum effort into this weekend and do everything we can. Mindset doesn't change. Nothing changes. Just, the same work, the same preparation, the same approach, because we knew we could do it. If we did everything correctly ourselves, we would give ourselves the best chance of doing it. And if we put the pressure on our competition, that would increase the chance of them making a mistake. And we would be able to come away with the championship, which in the end is exactly what happened.
Yeah. So can you run us through that weekend? Because you're at Zandvoort, which is in the Netherlands, and that's a very traditional, very tight, hard to overtake track. Can you run us through that weekend?
Yeah, so it was, all the practice was wet on Friday. It was a rainy day all day, so there was no dry practice, which means we turned up to Saturday with no dry track, or no dry practice, because I hadn't done any testing there or anything. I'd raced F2 there the previous year, but nothing in this car, and it's a completely different car. So yeah, Friday practice was all wet. Nicholas was doing the qualifying on Saturday morning and starting the race. So the first time I drove the track in the dry was, when I jumped in the car to do the second stint of the race. No practice, just get in, drive, race. And I'd never driven that track in this car in the dry, so I had no idea what to expect. And this comes back to the preparation, because I didn't know what to expect. It's a high pressure situation because we're fighting for championship. The only thing I could rely on was my preparation, which is what I did, because I did a lot of preparation and a lot of work before I turned up. When I was in that situation, I could just rely on my preparation.
Could you rely on your experience, because you come from single-seater racing and this is completely different? So was that something you could rely on, or was it just purely your preparation?
A little bit, but not much.
Yeah,
I'll be honest. So yeah, it was just about the preparation I'd done on my simulator and everything that's involved in it. And it worked because I put the hard work in before. I was the quickest BMW on track, quicker than their factory drivers, because I'd put the work in and I could rely on that, and I trusted myself, even with no practice. And so that was a good race. Won the race on track. I managed to fight up, overtake a few people. Unfortunately, we were carrying a penalty that had been picked up at the start of the race. And so we dropped back to second in the end for that race. But crucially, ahead of our competition, because they'd also received a penalty. So that was a bit of a messy race. And then we're coming into Sunday. We're still 6 points behind on Sunday. So we have to win the race, and they have to finish third or lower. So again, we're in control of doing what we can to win the race. We're not in control at all of where they finish. So we just had to do everything we could to win the race, and that would give us the best chance. And so I turn up to Sunday. It's my turn to qualify. It's a wet qualifying session, but drying out throughout. So very tricky, dynamic session. And ended up qualifying second overall, with our competition down in 20th. And so that's what I mean about, we just need to turn up to the track, do everything we can, and put the pressure on them. Let them make the mistakes. And that's exactly what started happening. So we were performing really strongly, which pressured them into making mistakes. And so, yeah, that starting at the front of the race, got a good start. Everything was going well. And then the rain came. And we're all on slick tyres, and it's a torrential downpour. and we have to stay on track for another 5 minutes because that's when the pit window opens. And if we pit for wet tyres, we'd have to just come in the pits again the next lap because there's a window in the race where you have to do a pit stop. And so, yeah, I was on the radio to my engineer and I said, look, how long have we got to the pit window? And he said, you just need to survive for 5 minutes. So yeah, that was pretty crazy.
So you're literally just tiptoeing around the track.
Exactly. Yeah, I not even full throttle on the straights. There was no grip. It's like fully wet track with slick tires, so no tread on them. So yeah, that was tricky. And then I was in third at the time. The two people in front of me went off because it was tricky conditions. I was leading the race, trying to just stay on the track, and yeah, got to the pit window. Nicholas jumped in the car, and yeah, so then we ended up third overall, and we ended up taking the championship.
Calan made P3 overall, and we are Gold Team Driver Champion and Gold Overall Driver Champion. Yeah! What a team! Oh, yes! We did it!
Team WRT, Nicholas Crichton and Calan Williams.
And yeah, it was very much a fairy tale ending, let's say, grabbing both championships in your first year. Thank you so much. We wish you all the best, everyone listening for this year, and we look forward to watching you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.